Welcome, everybody, to the Sensational Experience, episode number 5, here on the NoDQ.com YouTube channel. I am, of course, the Pennsylvanian sensation, Greg Cherry. And we got a bunch of questions that you guys asked me, so let's get right into them. First of all, I have 2 questions from Stephen Herman on Twitter at StephenHerman10. His first question is, what is your top 3 matches of the year so far in 2017? Oh boy. I would have to go, first of all, with John Cena versus AJ Styles from the Royal Rumble. That match was excellent. There were so many close falls in that match. It was ridiculous. I would also have to go with AJ Styles versus Shane McMahon from WrestleMania, which also a phenomenal match, no pun intended. But those two just tore the house down, and everybody for months before that said it was going to be a terrible match, so that there's no way that AJ should be fighting Shane, and they proved you guys wrong. I knew it. I knew that Shane and AJ would have a fantastic match, and everybody hated the storyline reason for it, but I was like, you know what? I'm focused on the match. I think it'll be awesome, and it was. And also, it wasn't exactly the best match, per se, but I would say the Fatal 4-Way Ladder match from WrestleMania also, just because of the moment that the Hardys came out. And, it was a really basic ladder match. It wasn't like something that you would have seen in the last 15, 20 years, but for what it was, I thought it was pretty good. I'm sure there's a better actual match. So I'm going to forget that one. Forget the tag team ladder match. I'm going to say the triple threat elimination tag team match from NXT TakeOver. I believe it was Orlando, between DIY, the Authors of Pain, and the Revival. That's the one I'm going with, because that match was awesome. His second question is, what is one match that isn't AJ Styles versus Shinsuke Nakamura that you want to see at WrestleMania next year? Next year, I mean, it's so hard to think like that far out, because they're already teasing Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar, which, as a match, I think should be good. Should it be for the title? No. I didn't think Goldberg Lesnar needed to be for the title either, but you know what? They actually put on an entertaining match for what it was. As far as matches I want to see at WrestleMania, I would love to see trying to think of something that Seth Rollins would be in. But I don't know who he could go against. Because there's so much that could happen. I mean, maybe once Bobby Roode comes up, they could do Seth Rollins versus Bobby Roode. I mean, it's a possibility. I mean, like I said, there's so many things that could happen between now and even the Royal Rumble time frame. So it's really hard to predict, because you don't know who's going to turn babyface. You don't know who's going to turn heel. I mean, in some cases it doesn't matter. But I'm just going to throw out Seth Rollins versus Bobby Roode. And they've also teased John Cena versus Samoa Joe, which they're on separate brands, so that could be interesting. But I'll say Seth Rollins versus Bobby Roode, because I don't know if that's ever happened. Honestly, AJ Styles versus Seth Rollins would be awesome too. But if they're going with Styles Nakamura, I'm not going to complain. Just saying. This next question is from Slow Motion, at Slow Motion for ya. What part of Shawn Michaels' career do you think was better? 1988 to 98, before his back surgery, or 2002 to 2010 post-back surgery? I go back and forth. Man. For those of you who aren't aware, Shawn Michaels is my favorite wrestler of all time, so this is a very good question for me. It's really hard to determine. I mean, in one case, I would say 2002 to 2010, simply because, I mean, he only won like 3 championships his entire time from 02 to 10. So if you're talking championships, it's obviously 88 to 98. But if you're talking fantastic matches, I mean, that's really hard to determine because in 2002, you expected great Shawn Michaels matches because you've known what Shawn Michaels can do. So from 02 to 10, you knew you were going to get a great match when HBK was involved. Period. End. From 88 to 98, he was still developing. He had the heel turn with the Rockers, breaking up. He had his great run as Intercontinental Champion, turned babyface, became WWE Champion a couple times, started DX. Man, I mean, Shawn Michaels just had an amazing WWE career, period. Both times. As far as which one was better, if we're going on match quality, I'm gonna say 02 to 10, 2002 to 2010. Just because Shawn Michaels put on some incredible matches from his very first match back against Triple H to quite possibly was regarded as the greatest WrestleMania match of all time, Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania 25. Hard to disagree with that. To a lot of great matches in between. His entire storyline with Chris Jericho. Both times. The 2003 version when they fought at WrestleMania and the 2008 version where we got the serious heel Chris Jericho for the first time. So I'm going to say 2002 to 2010. You guys can disagree with me if you want. Leave it in the comments because it's very hard to determine because Shawn Michaels' career was just that excellent the entire way through. My opinion. This next question is from Al Bryan at Lazaro Al Bryan. If I got it wrong, let me know. His question is, do you think that WrestleMania 33 was better than 32, 31, and 30? 32, yes. It was definitely better than 32. 32, while they were both the same length, 32 was just a cluster, and there wasn't that much great actual wrestling on the show. As terrible as that sounds. I mean, there wasn't really one memorable match other than Undertaker Shane McMahon. And when Shane O'Mac has to carry through the best match of the night, who is not a full-time wrestler, you got yourselves a problem. And I love Shane O'Mac. Don't get me wrong. He's probably in my top 10. But 33 was better than 32 easily. There was better action at 33 than there was at 32. I think bigger moments at 33 than 32. But 31 and 30 beat the living crap out of 33. Maybe not as much 30, but 31 definitely. WrestleMania 30 had fantastic matches, had the fantastic storyline all night with Daniel Bryan, had the shock of The Undertaker losing the streak, and, Cesaro winning the first Andre Memorial Battle Royal. Great moments. WrestleMania 31 was just fantastic. Probably the best WrestleMania of the modern era. Probably, as far as WWE WrestleManias and not WWF, I think WrestleMania 31 is the best one out of them all. Yes, that beats WrestleMania 20, which also excellent. But 33, out of the 30 numbered WrestleManias, 30, 31, 32, 33, 33 would be the third best. 31, 30, 33, 32. That's my opinion, and it should be yours. Jeff Meacham quote. And these final two questions are from my buddy Chris Ross from the Reaction Room, who's on Twitter at dead_end_old. You'll get that if you see his videos. His first question, what are your thoughts on the Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman's social media sightseeing adventure? I don't really have any thoughts. I mean, people are like, some people might be losing their minds. It's like, they're breaking kayfabe or whatever, which actually I'll go right into a second question. Is kayfabe really that important in the 21st century? I mean, these two questions kind of tie together. The thing is, kayfabe as far as this era is concerned, is mostly dead. Like, with all the dirt sheet sites out there, with all the information that you get, with all the social media that there is, you really get to know more of the person than the character. I mean, back in the 90s, it wasn't an issue, and kayfabe was still very much alive. And there were very few instances of breaking kayfabe for the uh, point of reality. Were there better moments back then? That's for you to determine. But kayfabe as a whole, it's very tough for people, especially when a show is not happening, when it's just like a regular like Saturday afternoon like this is. And you have to think, oh, I wonder what's going to happen on Raw. It's like, oh, he's going to get his revenge. It's like, there very much has to be a suspension of disbelief when you're watching pro wrestling. Where you just like put everything out of your mind and you just enjoy the show for what it is. And some people can't do that anymore. Some people can't separate, and I know I have trouble doing it sometimes, even though I've been on that side. I've been, as a manager, I mean, you watched the intro coming in, you saw parts of my indie wrestling career. But it's very hard for people in the audience, especially in this day and age, to suspend their disbelief long enough to just enjoy the show for what it is, get the moments for what they're supposed to be, and buy into the storylines. That's not WWE's fault. That's not, TNA's fault. That's not ROH's fault. In fact, ROH does probably kayfabe better than anybody else, honestly. It's just the way this world is now. I mean, social media has overtaken pretty much everything else in this world. I mean, you have your Twitter, you have Facebook, you have Instagram, you have all of that, and you see the actual people. I mean, look it up, Down, Down. Fantastic YouTube channel, by the way. If you haven't checked it out, it's Xavier Woods' video game channel, Up, Down, Down. There is no kayfabe there. I mean, it's the guys backstage having fun and showing their real personalities. I mean, you see baby faces and heels on there all the time, and it's not that big of an issue. 20 years ago, Xavier Woods probably would have been fired for even posting an episode of that. But we're in a different time. We know that the people on TV are different than the people backstage. So is kayfabe really that important? As far as on the actual show, not as important as it used to be. It is still a big deal on the show. But as far as after the cameras turn off, after the TV is turned off, people understand, or at least people should understand, that they're real life people just like us. They all have to go through the same thing. They all have to pay their bills. They all have to, pay gas and eat and all of that other stuff. But kayfabe is pretty much dead as a whole. And The Undertaker was, I believe, the last source of that being alive. Because he kept kayfabe in the WWE probably better than anybody else in the last 30, 40 years. And now that his career is over, kayfabe's pretty much dead too. I know that's a long way to go, and it's a long rant, but it very much needed to be addressed, and it's very thought-provoking, this episode of TSE. I like those kind of questions. So thank you, Chris, for that. So keep sending in your questions. Next week will not be a Q&A show. It will be exclusively focusing on the best matches in Backlash history, which is a little more extensive than Payback. Backlash actually goes back to the Attitude Era. So it should be a very interesting show. I probably won't go through every year because there's way more events, but I'll hit the highlights. Follow me on Twitter at PASensation. Like I said, send in your questions. Send them in here. You can send them in for the YouTube. You can send them to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You can message me, but I'm not going to accept a friend request because I just... If I don't know you, I have to say this every show. If I don't know you personally, I'm not going to accept your Facebook friend request. Don't take it personally. It's nothing against you. It's just a policy I have. That will do it for TSE number 5. So until next week, check out the prediction show. Check out the rest of TSE. Keep it sensational and keep it right here on No DQ.